Hello everyone, welcome back to another Pick-A-Card reading. In this Pick-A-Card reading, I am focusing on if that person you have in mind wants to be with you. Now, this is generally focused for those of you who are single, but there could be a situation where you're not single and you're still thinking about another person and you're wondering if he or she wants to be with you. So for this reading, I'm going to do 5 different readings. I'm going to use 2 different decks. And we're going to start with the Lapis Lazuli group. And then we're going to move on to the feather group. And number 3 is the dice. Number 4 is the Opalite stone. And number 5 is the key. So you can pause the video and tune into these 3 charms and 2 stones so that you can resonate with the reading that you want. And I'll be doing different readings using the different decks. So we're going to start with the Lapis group, and you can find the timestamps in the description box. Welcome Lapis to your reading. So as we said, we are focusing on whether this person wants to be with you. So tune into this thought and let's shuffle this deck a little bit. Of course it is shuffled, always shuffled between readings. And for your layout, I'm going to do a 9-card portrait, and I am going to fan the deck and draw the cards. All right, Lapis group. This is a really interesting set of cards here in this portrait. Now you're probably thinking, because of the scythe in the middle of the portrait, this person does not want to be with you. And the truth is that is a really strong possibility. The reason I say that is not because of the scythe by itself, because by itself the scythe doesn't say much. But I say that because of the scythe and ring in the central line here. But what is really curious is the column here. And these 2 lines, they T-cross each other. In this line, it's possible that this person wants a relationship with you. And because of the star and flowers, it's also possible. It adds to that much more. And the house has a pretty interesting role to play because it is your first card. So what I am suspecting is that this is a situation where this is a person who wants to leave their relationship and be with you, or you are in a relationship that you want to leave in order to be with this other person. However, we are focusing on the other person and if they want to be with you. So that's going to be the main focus of the interpretation. Even though the cards themselves, they also tell us more information. So let's weave these different lines together and see what's going to be the balance of the interpretation, what's going to be the main outcome. So the house at the top of your line has to do with a sense of stability and the sense of having boundaries. It's also possible that you feel tied down. And the reason I say that is because of the scythe. The scythe is a card of release, of cutting ties, of letting yourself go. And it's a bit different. Well, it's not a bit different. It's very different from the house, which is really solid and anchored. And because of the key on the other side of the scythe, it's really possible that it might be the right time for you to change the status quo and to change the situation that has been the case so far in your relationship. And I also feel that you might want to radically change how you live. And so this can potentially be a big reading in terms of a relationship. This is not just a crush or just an interest in a relationship. This can be a radical change in your relationship in order to move on to another one. That is really possible. What is really beautiful is the star, scythe, and rider. So from this line, I do feel that this is someone who wants to be with you because of the star, which is an all-around wish fulfillment card, and the rider, which is a knight in shining armor type of character. So I feel that together, this line here can mean that this desire that this person has towards you, or the fact that he wants you or she wants you, comes out of the blue. It's sort of unexpected. And with the scythe and rider, it's possible that there is a sudden change and that you can move forward in this relationship. Let's look at the rows. We've got the house, tree, and rider. Again, this is pretty positive for relationships, especially because of the rider in this line. The house and tree can mean that you grow, you evolve, and it can require a bit of patience. Maybe it is what has been the case so far, because it's very contrasting with the scythe here, which shakes things up and changes everything around. So what I am suspecting for you is that you're a little bit bored with the way things have been so far in your life, in your relationship. It's good and it's working and you're moving forward. It's not like you're stalling completely. But when I look at this line in contrast with this one, I feel that you are wanting a big change. You just want a status quo change. You want to shake yourself out of the way things have been. So I think you're set in a routine and you want to change that routine. Now the mountain, scythe, and ring is a combination of divorce. And it's a very clear combination of divorce. With the mountain, you could be looking at breaking through a blockage. And this is very similar to what we saw between the house and scythe. It's very possible that you want to break out of, this regular kind of routine, the way the house is. It's very organized and orderly and everything's in place. And I think you want to change that up. So it's possible that you want to let go of your relationship in order to be in a new one. And it's also possible that they want to do that in order to be in a relationship with you. And like we said, we are focusing on this mainly, but I'm also presenting the other possibility because it could apply for you. So I do feel that this is someone who wants to release themselves from a relationship in order to be in a relationship with you. And the reason I say that at this point is because when we see these two lines T crossing each other, this is a very powerful line. The rider, ring, and key is all around success and in relationships as well. And the rider is like a knight in shining armor. But it's not just the indications of the cards that tell me that this person wants to release their status quo in order to be in a relationship with you, but it's also because this is the line of the future most part of the story. So it can be seen a bit like an outcome. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel that this person might want to be in a relationship with you. They want to change their relationship. They want to move on from their current status quo, change things up, and go into a relationship with you. And then we have a very beautiful bottom row here. We've got the star, flowers, and key. So if this were the only line of the layout, it would be a definite yes, this person wants to be with you. But also in light of this column here, this very important future-most column, I do think that this is someone who wants to be with you, but first they need to change up their status quo, their scenario. It's possible that you need to do that for this relationship to come in. And so it has a lot of potential once that's gone through. So a very beautiful wish fulfillment line here. The flowers is beautiful in love. It has to do with flirting and attraction and chemistry. And the key is also pretty powerful. Sometimes the key can point to past lives, like a past life connection, or there is something really special with this person. And the reason I'm happy to bring up this side of the key is also because of the tree. And the tree is also that kind of wisdom card. It has to do with spirit. And so it's possible that there's a deeper connection here that needs to come out. And the star is also pretty spiritual in this sense, actually. So this is a very beautiful line that, along with this column, suggests that this is a person who wants a relationship with you. Just there needs to be a change of the current state. Now let's back up to the columns here. So we saw the rightmost one. Let's back up to the left one. We saw the house, mountain, and star. What's interesting is that this combination can point to a house abroad, a place abroad. And with the star, there could be a happy reunion or a wish coming true in this place abroad. But the mountain can also point to that sense of blockage or an obstacle, just like we read it in the central row. And I think this is the most likely interpretation in the context of love, but it can still apply in your specifics with regards to a house abroad or some kind of connection abroad. Now with the star, we are looking at healing and overcoming this obstacle. Just like we saw in the bottom line here, where we have lots of wish fulfillment cards, and like we saw in this diagonal where the scythe sort of has to do with breaking through the rigidity of the house, we're seeing something similar here. And then we've got the tree, scythe, and flowers. Now this is another very clear combination of the idea of uprooting. So when we see the scythe and tree together, it has to do with uprooting yourself. You could be moving, like because of the mountain, or making changes with regards to where you live. The other person can be doing that as well. Or they're the ones who do it so that this relationship can materialize. But the tree and scythe can also be more metaphorical in the sense that you are changing the status quo again. You are uprooting yourself from the current scenario, from the way things had been for a while. And with the flowers, you just want to refresh your life, refresh your environment, refresh your relationship. It's like you're coming back into play. It's like you're coming back to life. So I feel this is important at this stage, that you or the other person are releasing their current scenario in order to allow for a new relationship. And again, because of the flowers in this row, this very beautiful row, and because of the very important position of this column here and the cards that are in it, I feel they do want to be in a relationship with you. And as we read, the Rider, Ring, and Key is an all-around success combination in relationships. So it may materialize, in fact. This reading is not just telling us whether they want to be with you. I think they do want to be with you, but it's also telling us that it's likely going to happen, and that's because of the position of these cards in the future-most area of the portrait. So this is a really, really interesting portrait, Lapis group. I have to say, the contrast of this line with this column and the role of the scythe in this portrait, and the way we have these three cards, which are really anchored cards, in contrast with the scythe, tells us this really interesting story about what's going on, that they want to be in a relationship with you, but in order to do that, something needs to change radically. Now, I'm not saying that you have to change things radically or that they have to. I'm saying that it seems to be a condition for the relationship with you to materialize. Now, if that's something you decide you want to do, that is up to you. But the cards are saying that this is a person that wants to be with you, but in order to have a relationship with you, either you or the other person needs to make a radical change from the current state of affairs. And of course, it could be both of you who need to release yourselves from your current state of affairs in order to be in this relationship. But other than the scythe and this radical combination with the ring, that is the combination of divorce and separation, all the other cards are really, really positive. We've got the star, the flowers, the key, the tree. These are lovely cards. The Rider is a beautiful card. The house is a lovely card as well for relationships. It's just that its position relative to the scythe gives it a bit of a different twist in this context. But in general, the house is really good with relationships because it has to do with stability and building something solid. The mountain can be challenging, but it's more neutral in the sense that you're getting over this blockage, which is already indicated by the scythe and ring. So the balance of the cards is really, really interesting for this spread. This is a totally unique spread. I do think it's really positive. I do think they want a relationship with you, but it's really interesting how there has to be this radical change for it to happen. So I would really like to know what you make of this portrait. I really want to know, how do you need to change? How do you feel they need to change in order for this relationship to happen? Is there a blockage that needs to be broken through? Is there a status quo that needs to be completely changed for this relationship to materialize? Do you think you want to do this if that's in your hands? I would really, really like to know. This is such a curious portrait in the context of love. I just cannot wait for your comments. So I want to say thank you so much for tuning into this reading. I really look forward to your comments again. And before I let you go, I want to remind you that I have helpful resources for you to master Lenormand and to take advantage of other resources and private readings, of course, that I have for you. So thank you so much for tuning into this reading, and I am looking forward to our next one together. Welcome, group belonging to the Feather Charm. I've got here your Titania's Fortune cards, and for your reading we are going to do a line of 7. And keep in mind that we are focusing on whether that person wants to be in a relationship with you. So for this line of 7, my deck is already shuffled, and I always like to fan the deck and draw the cards for a line of 7. All right, group of the Feather. I am pretty clear with this line of 7. I do not think this is someone who wants to be with you. The card that stands out the most is the Road. In relationships, the Road tends to point to the end of an affair. The thing about the Road is that it can go both ways. It can be about a new beginning and moving into this new beginning down that path. Or it can be letting go and going in a new direction. So the road can be two ways in that sense. But in love, it tends to be associated with an ending and a parting and people going their own way. Now, on top of that, I'm not seeing any other love cards. And there seems to be the need to go off and explore. And that's mainly coming through this side of the line of 7. Now, earlier on, we have some curious cards. We have the Cross, Lily, and Bear. In my dictionary, the Lily and Bear has to do with matters related to the law. And with the Cross, there seems to have been a burdensome affair or some heavy-duty decisions that needed to be made that affected this person in an important way, and I think it affects their path and how they move forward in life. So I really don't see that they are in a mindset that is open to love at this stage. Instead, I feel that they're carrying this burden that has to do with their life, possibly a legal thing going on, and they're really a lot more concerned about their direction in life. So apart from the Road, which is right in the middle of the line of 7, we also have the Ship, Bird, and Book. Now, these 3 cards, the Road, Ship, and Bird, are all about travel. Each of them has to do with travel. So when they figure together, this theme is highlighted. So it could be that this person is looking to leave and explore places in a physical way, like in a literal way. And, you know, they're putting this episode behind them or this situation. I think they still carry it, but it could be that they need to move on from it because it's in the past side of the line of 7, and they just want to go off and explore. And what's interesting is that the Book is the card of unknowns and mysteries and things not revealed, and we see it at the far right of the line of 7. So the future-most aspect for this person has to do with mysteries and things that are not known. And in light of these travel cards, I feel that this is a person who just wants to explore their options. They want to explore their options not only in a physical way, like they want to travel and explore places, but also in terms of relationships, which is the focus of our reading. I think this person wants more options. And what's interesting is that the Road itself is often associated with options, the idea of choices, the idea of being at crossroads. The Bird, which is often represented in Lenormand decks as 2 or more birds, has to do with the idea of multiplicity. The Ship is not a committed card in love. It is not so much about commitment. So I really feel that this is a person who does not want a relationship, at least not just yet, because they are exploring their options and they want to discover more. They want to learn more about what's out there. I think they want to meet different people in the context of love. And with this situation here, it's also possible that they are wanting something serious. And I say that because each of these cards are serious in their own way. You know, the cross is about important decisions. The lily is about life itself and the long term. And it is a conservative card in relationships. It has to do with long-term commitment and marriage. And the bear is also about that sense of importance and, you know, the idea of authority. So in the context of relationships, it works well with the lily because it points to a sense of formality and the idea of marriage and, you know, a more traditional approach to a relationship. So I really feel that this line is really, really clear. And I always appreciate this kind of clarity from Lenormand's cards. And so it's pretty clear to me, Feather Group, that I do not think this is a person who is wanting a relationship. They are looking for something serious, but they are also exploring their options right now. They want to explore alternatives. They want to go off on their own. They want to maybe go places and, you know, see what's available to them. So let me know what you make of this, if it resonates with the feeling that you have about this person. I'm sorry if you feel this is a disappointing spread and if you've had hopes in the relationship. Again, keep checking into your own wisdom. Remember that cards are just one source of insight, and they are never a replacement for your inner wisdom and how you attract things into your life, you know? That's really, really important. But if you're just looking at these cards and what they're telling us, it's very, very clear that this is a person who is not ready to be in a relationship just yet. They have their focus on the long term and on a serious relationship eventually. And for now, it looks like they are wanting to explore their options. So a very clear spread. Let me know what you make of it. Let me know how you're going to use the insights in your life. I'd really like to know that. And so I'm looking forward to your comments about this, really looking forward to them. And before I let you go, I want to remind you that I have lots of helpful resources for you in the description box, so be sure to check them out. And as always, thank you so much for tuning into this reading, and I am looking forward to our next one together. Welcome, Dice Group. I've got your dice here watching over our reading. And for your reading, I am using my own deck, and I will be doing a double line of 5. So my deck is always shuffled between readings. And for this one, I'm going to deal out the double line of 5. So here we go. All right. Now, this is a really interesting and beautiful layout, what we're seeing here. We are seeing relationship cards in this layout. We are seeing the man and we are seeing the ring, and it is right in the middle of the double line of 5. And we do have the rider and bear. This is a curious combination, and the reason I say it's curious is because of its position relative to everything else. So it is on the far right of the double line of 5, which tends to point to the future. Now, what I'm thinking is that this is someone who wants a relationship with you, but it's going to take time before it materializes. So I don't think it materializes within this phase. And the tree on top of that is a card of time and things unfolding over time. And we see it right on top of the ring in this combination. So let us start weaving these lines and see what is the outcome of this spread. What is it telling us? Does this person want to be with you? So we've got the man, fish, tree, rider, and coffin. Now that is interesting. I do think this person wants a relationship with you, but I'm not so sure they're going to do anything about it. And it's probably this man here that you're thinking about. It's probably a man that you are wanting to have a relationship with and therefore wondering if they reciprocate. And so the man, fish, and tree is a positive combination, and the rider along with that is also positive. We do see that there is some attraction because of the fish, and the rider is also a knight in shining armor type of character. The tree is really the card that slows things down, and on top of that we've got the coffin right at the end of the line. So it's really possible that this is a person who is thinking about it. This is a person who's thinking about it more deeply, taking his time with the decision, and I'm really not so sure he does any anything active towards it. So the Rider is generally an active card, but the Coffin is not. And it is a card of endings, so it's possible that he doesn't really act on what he wants. Instead, he's really thinking about it. But the bottom line is much more active. We've got the Child, the Fox, the Ring, Bear, and Clover. So what is possible here is that, again, this person wants a relationship, but because of the fox, he could be considering other options. I think that is really, really possible. But it's really nice to see the Bear and Clover on the other side of this. Again, the Bear is a slower card. The Clover tends to be a bit faster, but it is accompanied by the Coffin in this column. So I don't think that, the speediness of the Clover comes through, because the central cards and this outcome or future-most column are focused on a slower pace. Now, what is interesting is that it's really possible that there's a good reason for this. There's a good reason for why things are taking time. And it might not be known within the current phase, but when we see the Coffin and the Clover, we have a really good indication that there's a good reason for that. The Ring and Bear can point to an important new relationship, and the Child is a new relationship. It's just the Fox that throws this line off a little bit. Very interesting position, very interesting dynamic with the Fox. He could be contemplating alternative options, and he is therefore taking his time. I think he's thinking of a relationship. I think he wants a relationship with you, but you might not be the only person he wants a relationship with. That is possible. That is possible. And that's mainly because of the Fox. And in light of the Fox, we have these slower cards up here. He might not do anything about it. So it's really interesting. He's contemplating this relationship and possibly other options as well. And because of the Coffin and Clover, I have to say that he might not do anything about the relationship with you. But let's start looking at these columns here. The Man and Child, a new relationship, a new person. That's pretty straightforward. It's possible that he's a man with children. That can sometimes be the way we read the person card, whether it's a man or woman with the child. So it could be that that's the case for this person. The Fish and Fox can mean that this is a person who wants a physical relationship. It's possible that this is a person who wants a friends with benefits type of arrangement. And that could also be what's coming through in here. Now, whether that works for you, that's totally fine. Whether it does not, that's a different story. It could be what leads you to not pursue this relationship, even though he may want that and that kind of arrangement. Maybe it is not so fitting with you and what you're after. The Tree and Ring is a beautiful combination for relationships. It has to do with a relationship that grows and evolves positively over time. But in this context, it's a little bit different, right? Because we saw in the top line that the Tree is more about taking time and contemplating options. It's worth saying that the Tree is also a card of solitude, although in this combination, it bodes really well for a relationship. But I think the solitude element or aspect of the Tree can come through because of the dynamic here with the Coffin and the way the cards play out in this line. And because of the Fox and what it does to the bottom line. That's why I feel that the solitude aspect of the Tree can come through even in this combination. The Rider and Bear is an important combination, suggesting important steps forward. And the funny thing is that it doesn't really go anywhere because we've got the Coffin and the Clover. So there could be advances made by this gentleman towards you, or there could be some movement or some activity. You might even get together. That's possible. You might even experiment with the relationship. But because of the Coffin and Clover, I'm not so sure that you find that it's the right one for you. I think maybe you experiment with the relationship, you sort of play with it a little bit. And I'm not saying there isn't attraction, there is, but I think once you get that much closer to this person, I think you might fall out, sort of. Or you might feel that this is not necessarily what you're after. There is a slight chance that you give it more time because of the Coffin, but honestly, I feel that it's more the idea that it doesn't really sit. It doesn't really feel like it's what you want. And the reason I say that, despite the fact that the Coffin is also a card of time and things, you know, taking a break and being on hold, it's really because it's in the right-hand side of the layout that I feel that it doesn't lead to a relationship. So we've got all this stuff going on here, and then boom, there's the Coffin, you know? So it's sort of, it sort of closes the door on the activity that we're seeing before it. So this is a really interesting double line of 5. There's quite a bit going on. So far we're seeing that there is an attraction. This person wants to be with you, but they're also contemplating their other options, and it could be that they're interested in a friends with benefits relationships. Now, if that is working for you, that's fine, but I think that once you have some forward movement with this person, or you get to know them a bit better, or you hang out with them, you feel that you don't really want to take it to the next steps. It's also possible that he feels that way too, but I really have a feeling that it's at least mutual. So let's wrap up this really interesting layout with some diagonals. We've got the Child, Fish Ring, Rider, Clover. So this bodes really well for a relationship. And we've got the ring in the middle. These cards are great. These cards are nice. The Child and Fish and Ring, sorry, not the Child so much, but the Fish and Ring points to this idea of a friends with benefits relationships. It's possible. And that's because the fish in relationships is all about the sensuality aspect. So that's why I feel that this is what could be happening here, or this is what this relationship could be about, or this is how this person is seeing the relationship. This is what they want out of it. The Clover in this context is really good. I mean, the Clover is an all-around positive card. So I'm not saying that you don't have the potential to have some really good times together and to enjoy a lot of chemistry. No, that's not what I'm saying. I think that potential is very truly there. It's just that I don't feel that this is something that you'll want for a relationship as such, or for the longer term. And then we've got the Man, Fox, Tree, Bear, and Coffin. Now this is a pretty powerful set of cards, pretty clear. I think this is someone who does not want to take this relationship further beyond what we saw here with the likelihood of a friends with benefits relationships. I think the Fox here throws it off. And then on top of that, we have the powerful Bear and Coffin, which is putting something to an end. So the Tree in the middle can mean that he takes his time with it. But I think from the outset, his mind is made up, because we've got the Fox closest to the Man, and then the Tree, Bear, Coffin. You know, he's taking his time with wrapping this relationship up or moving on to something else. Even though there is attraction, I think the balance of the cards is that he's contemplating his options, and he could be dragging his feet around it. He's wanting a relationship that's more physical and not really interested in anything more. And I also think that once even that part of the relationship comes through, I'm not sure there is much of a future for it. So that's a really interesting way that the story unfolds through these cards. You know, we've had to dig out the details to get a more definite answer, because initially we saw the Tree and Ring right in the middle, but oftentimes a bird's eye view is not enough. We have to dig out the combinations and the details, especially in the bigger spreads. And that's because there are more cards and we need to weave the story. And so the combinations and the details across the different ways we can combine the cards becomes really important to come out with the outcome. So I feel despite the attraction, despite the interest that is there, I don't think there is much prospect for a longer term relationship. So let me know what you make of this. This is a really interesting spread, lots of details in here. I am really looking forward to your comments. Let me know how you feel about it. Let me know if you're going to do anything about it, or if something is already happening and how you're going to respond to it. I'd really love to know. So looking forward to your comments. And before I let you go, I want to remind you that I have lots of helpful resources for you in the description box. So have a look. And as always, I'm so thankful that you dropped by, and I am so looking forward to our next reading together. Welcome, Opalite group. I have your very beautiful stone here watching over our reading, and I will be using this Titania's Fortune Cards deck for your reading. And for this one, I want to run a medium-sized hourglass. So I like to deal the cards, and of course my deck is shuffled. So let's go ahead and deal out your hourglass. All right, now this is a very obvious layout telling us that this is not someone who wants a relationship with you. It's very clear that there is an ending of sorts that comes through, and then possibly a new beginning that ensues. But really, there are plenty of cards that point to the idea that this isn't someone who wants a relationship with you. And even if they did, because of the possible anchor that could point to an interest, I feel that because of the whip and coffin, it's pretty clear that it cannot really go anywhere. And so there seems to be a parting or a separation that prevents anything from happening. I really think this is coming through these cards. So let's weave the different lines here. The whip, coffin, and fish definitely suggests that this is the end of possibly a hope. So the fish can, interestingly enough, it can sometimes point to dreams. And with the whip and coffin, it can be the end of a dream, the end of a possibility. And if there was any attraction or some kind of early relationship elements coming through that could be suggested by the fish, I think they come to an end because of the very powerful whip and coffin combination. In the bottom line, we have the child, rider, and scythe, and this clearly points to a new beginning. And when I see the scythe and rider, it has to do with a change of direction, often halfway through. So there could be a change of mind, or the idea, well, that's not going to work and we have to go somewhere. The idea of an ending and the idea coming through the rider and scythe in addition to the child suggests that there could be a parting, maybe even a literal parting where you're just not able to get together somehow. Maybe he goes away or she goes away and you yourself go somewhere else. So it's possible that there is a real situation here that prevents you from getting together. And so I think it's pretty clear from these two lines, the top and the bottom line, that there cannot be a relationship even if there were some interest. So initially, from these cards, I don't think there is an interest. I don't think they reciprocate if you are interested in them. The thing about the anchor in the central line is that it can point to an interest because it's a strong card, and in love it has to do with connections and security. But here we are finding the fox, and the fox is not great in relationships. It often has to do with challenges, but also the idea of not being fully invested in the relationship or being half-hearted. So I'm not seeing that this is someone who wants to be in a relationship with you. And even if they did, because of the slight possibility coming through the anchor, I just don't see it materializing. There are too many challenging cards that are at odds with a relationship, with the idea of a relationship. The whip and child points to a bad start in a very blunt way. It can also be a false start. The idea that something fails to take off. And so it's possible here, again, I got that sense from the fish earlier that there might have been a hope, or there might have been an initial desire, and we see it through the child, but it didn't really take off. So it didn't really go anywhere. So this is a misstep or a false start and a bad start, something that didn't really take off. The coffin and rider can point to the end of a journey. So again, we are seeing the idea of an ending coming through. This is pretty clear. It can mean that something wasn't happening, that the relationship or the potential for a relationship was not really advancing. There was no forward movement. There was no step forward anywhere. It was just stalling and it wasn't really going anywhere. And then we've got the fish and scythe, which doesn't really tell us much by itself, but in light of these cards, again, it can point to perhaps a broken dream, or the idea that the hope really fails to take off and that it has to be probably shattered in that's a really aggressive way of putting it. I should say just a broken dream, really just not going anywhere. So it's pretty clear from these cards, Opalite group, that this is not a person who wants to be in a relationship. I don't think there is a relationship potential. It did not take off. I think it fails to take off in the future as well. So I think this could be a good time to change directions and move into a new love and a new prospect and new opportunities. We're still going to go over the two mini portraits here. I think they're going to repeat the messages very strongly. We have the child, anchor, and coffin. That's really interesting because the child and anchor is a new beginning, but the anchor and coffin is a definite ending. And so again, we're seeing the idea that there was a potential, there was a prospect, but it failed to take off. And as well in here, we've got the whip, anchor, and rider. The whip and anchor is a challenging combination. It does suggest that you stand your ground, or maybe that you've tried or you've stuck with it for some time. But again, the whip is pretty powerful in here and suggests that it doesn't really go anywhere. The anchor is also a secure card. It's really tied down. And so with the rider that wants to move and go forward, it can be preventing movement, especially because of the whip that is challenging this movement in this combination. So again, I'm not seeing that this goes anywhere. Very clear in this line, coffin, fox, and scythe, clear ending. I don't think this is someone who wants a relationship. And, you know, a bit of disappointment can be suggested by these cards. When we saw several times in many different combinations actually that it failed to take off or there was a hope, I do feel very strongly here that there's been a letdown and that perhaps it's best to give up on this. And I think that they also feel this way. And then we've got the rider, fox, and fish, which might point to some potential relationship. But with the fox and fish, I think this has to do with, if anything, friends with benefits type of relationships, a more physical relationship. And with the rider, there could be some movement, but again, because of the strength of all of these other cards, I really don't think there is potential here, and I don't think they feel there is potential. They are probably just going to move on, and if anything ensues, it could be something a bit shallow, superficial. I don't think it takes off. So this is a really straightforward, very clear, very powerful reading. There's no mincing words. There's no two ways of interpreting the cards. Typical Lenormand in your face, telling us that nope, there's no prospects here. This is not someone who's interested, and it probably doesn't go anywhere either. So I'm sorry if you find this message disappointing, but I also really appreciate the clarity that comes through. I also want to remind you that, cards are always only one source of insights. Tune into yourself and tune into the situation. And if you feel that this resonates with how you're feeling, then it's probably on the ball. But if you feel that the story is incomplete, then keep searching within and look for alignment. This is really the key. So let me know what you make of this reading. I'm really looking forward to your thoughts. Leave me your comments below. And before I let you go, I want to point you to some resources that I have for you in the description box. Be sure to check them out. I teach all about the Lenormand practice, and I've got master courses for it. And I also have plenty of other resources, as well as the private reading menu if you're interested. So thank you so much for tuning into this reading, and I am so looking forward to our next one together. All right, here we are with the last reading of the 5, and this is for the group for the key charm. This is such a pretty little charm. Now, for this reading, I am using my own deck, and it is shuffled, of course, and I will be drawing a diamond layout. I'm going to be doing a medium-sized layout. I think they are appropriate for this kind of reading. So let's go ahead and deal out these cards and see what we get. All right, now this is a pretty clear diamond layout that tells me that there is no interest in a relationship. I don't think this is someone who wants to be in a relationship. The mouse, coffin, and scythe here, this is like a combination that knocks it out, I think. Even if the cards here were really positive, if we had the sun and clover and all of those beautiful cards, I still think that these 3 cards, they knock it out because they are together, they are very powerful in terms of their messages, and they're also on the right side of the diamond, which tends to be associated with the futuremost area of a reading, and so as a result, the outcome. So it's pretty clear to me that you need to change directions, and probably also they need to change directions, and I don't think this is something that comes through. We've got the woman, garden, and scythe. So the woman can be yourself, or she can be the other person. And the garden and scythe usually points to the breakup of a gathering. So if there was a meeting, or if you were dating, if you were getting together, it's very possible that it falls out and that you no longer do, almost suddenly or just out of the blue. That is possible. And then we've got this challenging line. We've got the fox, garden, and bird. And again, this has to do with the idea that something is not really working out. And the fox and garden is someone who is not really invested in the relationship. With the bird and the garden, which can point to dating and getting together, I do feel that it's possible that they want to see other people. Maybe you want to see other people. I'm not really seeing that they're committed to a relationship or to even wanting a relationship at this stage. I feel they're a bit scattered, or they just want to have fun right now and they're not really vested in the relationship. So I don't see that this is someone who is interested. And on top of that, the square is pretty clear. We've got the fish, mouse, coffin, rider. The fish in relationships tends to be the physical aspect of relationships. And because of all of those challenging cards in here and what we read earlier in this line and these 3 that we'll get to in a bit, the fish is more about, it tends to be more shallow in light of these cards. It can be about sensuality and a very powerful physical attraction, but because I'm not seeing other bright cards to bring this out, and we have these challenging cards, they tend to bring out the more shallow aspect of relationships. So I'm really not seeing that this is, I mean, I would also say that this is not someone you want to be with. Not just that they don't really want to be in a relationship, but I think it's a good thing that they don't want to be in a relationship, because I don't think you should want to be with them. I just don't think they're up for a relationship. I think they're a bit shallow. They're not focused on this right now. And it's pretty clear to me from the square that it's not going to go anywhere. And really not just from the square, but we're going to see the powerful diamond lines here. The mouse and coffin has to do with an ending. And these diagonals point to similar challenges. The fish, garden, and coffin is a parting or an absence. So just like we suggested earlier, maybe you had been dating for some time and that just stops, you no longer see each other. And then the rider, garden, and mouse can be something that is disappointing. A side of them comes through and you're like, oh, no, that's not what I want. And they could also feel the same way, they might reciprocate as well. And it's pretty clear, any way you look at these lines, because of the mouse and coffin, this doesn't look like it's a prospective relationship, and I'm not seeing that they're even interested. The fox, mouse, and scythe is a clear no-no, big no-no, and so much the better, honestly, because the fox and mouse are cards of mistrust in relationship, and so together it's not good. And then we've got the scythe, coffin, and bird. Very clear to me that this is an ending, a parting. It could mean very physically that you go your separate ways, that you're no longer seeing each other, that you're not in the same area or the same environment anymore, and so it's no longer possible. But because of the challenge coming through the fox and mouse, and especially that they're together, and we saw these lines here, I think it's not just the fact that you're not in the same environment. I think it's just not a prospective relationship. There's no interest in here. There is not. The bird, rider, and woman can point to discussions or getting together, invitations maybe. That's possible. And with the woman, fish, and fox, again, the shallowness, the kind of friends with benefit aspect is coming through. And I think this has prospects. You might want to do that with this person. You might want to just have a physical relationship with them. But because of this powerful line and the fact that it's on the right side of the diamond, so the future-most aspects of the reading and the story, I'm not seeing that it's something you want to take forward, even if there is maybe some chemistry or maybe some fun moments happening here. I'm really not seeing that this continues. And I would also say, to answer the question really directly, I don't think they are interested in a relationship, and I don't think they're serious, honestly, about anything. I don't think they're in a space right now that they are interested in a relationship. There are some pretty negative cards here, and I think it's actually a good sign. It's a helpful reading in the sense that if you're wanting to invest yourself in this person, honestly, I think they have other issues to take care of right now before they can be freed up to be in a relationship, to be mature about a relationship. I'm just not seeing that they have the right mindset. So very interesting diamond. I really appreciate the straightforward indications that come through these cards. And even when there are harsh messages like this side of the diamond, it's still really helpful to bring us back into reality, to help us consider the situation from a different perspective. If we had been too hopeful, when perhaps we should not be overlooking some aspects of this person. So a very powerful diamond, very clear in its answer. I want to say also, I'm sorry if you find this reading challenging. A few other readings in this pick a card were also challenging, but the honesty is great, and it also helps for a different perspective. So I'm really looking forward to your comments on this one. Please leave me your thoughts in the comment section. Really, really looking forward to them. And before I let you go, I want to point you to the links that I have for you in the description to master Lenormand or to take advantage of the other resources that I have for you. So thank you so much for tuning into this reading, and I am looking forward to our next one together.